Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out, episode 298, nearing the 300 show mark. Wow, almost 6 years with 50 new Tech It Out shows per year, so that makes sense. Thank you so much for your support. I recorded this show earlier in the week because I'm currently on a couple of business trips that I think you'll find interesting, and I'll chat about it with you next weekend. By the time you hear this, I'll be coming back from Brazil as I went to the Amazon rainforest to check out a solar tech hub. It's like a high-tech hut in the middle of the Amazon rainforest that provides telemedicine support to indigenous people via video conferencing with doctors. And there are other benefits too, like bridging the digital divide for tech literacy and education, upskilling for work opportunities in the area, and so on. Intel invited me to go. Sounds super cool. Then, on June 5th and 6th, I'll be going to Cupertino, California with Apple to its WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference. The cool kids call it WWDC. I'll tell you next weekend what all the highlights were from my vantage point in the crowd at Apple's auditorium, and then breakout sessions. It's rumored that we'll see Apple's first ever mixed reality headset that fuses virtual reality with augmented reality, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Hope it's true. Plus, we'll see the latest iPhone operating system, iOS 17, and what that can do. Again, I'm excited to share the news with you on next week's show. But that doesn't mean we don't have awesome topics and guests for you on this show. On the contrary, in fact, first up, we hear about new podcasting gear from Mackie. Whether you're a podcaster or thinking of starting, we'll tell you about the DLZ Creator. After that, Netgear introduces us to Wi-Fi 7, what it is, what you need, and more, including how much faster it is than today's Wi-Fi 6 and other benefits. Then, tech expert Amber Mack will join us to talk tech for seniors. And finally, we'll catch up with Prezi, the folks behind that awesome presentation software. All of this and more on an all-new Tech It Out, powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. I'll tell you more about ASUS shortly, but let's officially kick off the show with our first interview. Whether it's your full-time gig, side hustle, or maybe just a hobby, it's super fun to host a podcast. Rather than being at the mercy of a radio station to give you your own show, anyone, anywhere can host an audio podcast if you've got the right gear. And there's a new tool on the market to help out podcast creators called the DLZ Creator. Joining us to chat about it is Matt Redmon. He's Director of Product for Mackie. Thanks for your time, Matt. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, before we talk about the DLZ Creator, tell us a bit about Mackie. The company's been around for more than 30 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Almost 35 years, in fact.
Wow.
And we were founded on mixers, too, which I think is an important part of the DLZ story. So. But fast forward to today, you know, we make a wide range of audio products, pro stuff for the stage and studio, but also stuff for, you know, home and on the go. And we started our focus serving musicians and engineers, but have since broadened that focus to include creators of all walks and even consumers. So we have products now ranging from mixers to loudspeakers to studio monitors, but also creator and consumer friendly stuff, microphones, wireless headphones, earbuds. So really exciting time to be part of the brand.
On that note, you sound super clear. So you must be using Mackie tech.
I might be.
I would expect nothing less. All right. So let's just jump in and hear about this new tool, this mixer, I believe. It's called DLZ, just as it sounds, DLZ Creator. I believe it's a mixer, correct?
That is correct. It is a podcast mixer, you know, 4 mic inputs, 9 faders, 6 sample pads, 4 headphone outputs, and a huge touchscreen on it. So we can dig into what it is, but first and foremost, it is a podcast mixer.
All right. So let's unpack some of that. I think some of this will be pretty easy to comprehend for our listeners. Obviously, microphone inputs and headphone jacks, but what's the faders and the touchpad? What's all that about?
Well, the centerpiece is really the screen, right? Because there aren't any podcast mixers that are completely screen-based, and ours is. So you can see everything you're doing and super easily navigate around the product. And the other thing that we do with that screen is make it adaptable, right? So we have different work modes for different users. Some are easy that show you less and make more decisions for you, and others are totally pro. So super flexible and very unique in that regard, from entry-level users all the way up to pros.
What if you host a podcast without a mixer? You have a microphone, of course, but why is a mixer recommended?
Well, right. Like you want to have more people in the room. Like if you're at my house, maybe it's my wife and my daughter and my cat, and they all have microphones too, right? And
your cat too.
Well, we can call it podcats. But that's it, right? So if you've got people in the room that you want to engage with all live in a room and do a podcast that way, this product suits that.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. So would you say then that this DLZ Creator is more ideal for people who are together in one place, or like we're doing over Zoom audio? Is it also ideal for interviewing people over the internet or over the phone or something?
I would say that it's both, right? Because whether it's just you or you and 3 other people at your place, this product can accommodate that. It's got the flexibility, but also if you want to do a show like ours, I mean, you and I both could have 3 guests in our rooms and have an 8-person podcast, right?
Yeah, awesome. Just to break down that geek speak into street speak, can you explain what a fader is? That's simply the level for that channel, right? Like that input.
Yeah, just like a volume knob on your car stereo, only it's a long straight line, right? So pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, so it slides up and down. And What were the pads that you were mentioning? What's that?
So they're sound pads or triggers, right? So if you have a music bed or a swear word bleep that you want to trigger, right? All you got to do is press one of these buttons and trigger that sound. And they're all color coded, so you know what they are. And you can customize them to be whatever sounds you want.
All right. So like with your bad cat pun, if I had a laugh track or that little drum thing that I said with my mouth, the ba-dum-bumps, if I had that programmed to the DLZ Creator from Mackie, then I can just touch that and it'll instantly play that sound bite that I wanted, that sound clip.
That's it. Although that joke is probably worth more of a sad trombone.
Yeah. Like this? Why not, right? Okay, awesome. Do you need to be like a seasoned podcaster to use DLZ Creator? I think you've already hinted at this. It's also ideal for those who are new. I mean, is it really that easy to learn?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the reason that we did design the product the way we did with a giant flexible screen. And so the way I think about it is that it can be everything to anyone, whether you're a pro or you're starting out new or you're serving a range of both, right? Like in some cases, you've got maybe a radio station where you've got one seasoned audio vet, but then a bunch of other people who fall more in the talent or broadcaster category. You can just put it in easy mode for them. So on the one end of the scale, there's folks that will put it in easy mode and leave it that way forever. On the other end of the scale, there's folks that will put it in pro or enhanced mode where you can see all the tools that an audio professional would want, or you can actually learn about audio using the product, right? Like if you start out in easy mode, you're going to have a guided tour, a setup wizard telling you where to plug everything in to get set up right out of the box. You have things like auto mix on board, so you don't even have to do level control. So all of that is right there for you. But again, if you want to learn more about it, there's wizards and tours that show you around the product, tell you what things do, and you can scale up from easy mode to enhanced mode and get more controls, right? Like, so instead of just loading a preset called broadcast and calling it a day, now you've got some EQ controls, or if you want to add a little bit of reverb or compression to your voice, you can do that too. So you get a little bit more of that, broadcast sound.
Nice. We're chatting with Matt Redmon, Director of Product for Mackie. We're learning about their new mixer tool, DLZ Creator. How big is it? Could you travel with this?
Yeah, I mean, the screen's 10 inches, right? So the product itself is about like 14 by 19 inches, but it only weighs about 6 pounds. We also offer a backpack for it.
Do you need a computer to use this as well? Or does the screen on the DLZ Creator kind of replicate what a computer screen can show?
So once again, I would say both. You can have an SD card or a USB thumbstick, memory stick, stuck into the product itself that you can keep all your samples on, do all your recording onto. So with no laptop, I could go over to your place and we could record an entire episode and then we could edit and publish it later. And I've even got sound editing tools on the product itself, so you can create a sample and snip it yourself right on the product, again, without a computer. So, but when you add the computer, you get all those extra elements that you would expect. You can record multi-track, you can live stream on StreamYard or whatever it is. So super flexible in that regard.
What's Mackie's mix agent?
Yeah, well, first of all, if I tell you, I have to kill you. Just kidding. So that's
where's that trombone sound effect again?
Mix agent. No. It's the way I think of it is that it's shorthand for all of the mix assistance tools that we give you out of the box. You get walked through the setup. Once you get into the mixer, there's a tour available to guide you through. But all those other tools too, automatically setting your microphone gain and your level, automatically setting the relative levels between you and the people that you speak with. So I think of all that as mix agent. So maybe think of it as a tiny wizard with an audio engineering degree that lives inside your mixer, like he's there to help, but he's also not offended when you don't need him.
That's a good visual. Thanks for that. Before we wrap up, what other gear would you recommend for someone who wants to host their own podcast?
Well, obviously you're going to need mics, and you might want headphones and maybe even studio monitors or computer speakers too. And, while you're on the Mackie website, you can find, our broadcast mic, our boom arm, our headphones, those things too. Or of course, we're compatible with every other microphone or headphone on the market. All of this goodness can be had for $7.99 is the launch price in the US. Of course, we're available at your favorite Mackie dealers, including partners like Amazon and even our own D2C at Mackie.com.
All right, Mackie.com, Mackie.com. Matt Redmon's been our guest. Hey, thanks so much for carving out some time to chat, Matt. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
A lot more Tech It Out coming right up after this.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. This show is powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life, and that includes its line of award-winning laptops and desktops, accessories like monitors, mice, and keyboards. There's mobile tech like smartphones and tablets, smartwatches, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. Name something we all use at home, but often don't know when it's time to upgrade it. Well, if you said Wi-Fi, you'd be right. Chances are it's been a few years since you've upgraded your wireless internet, and performance may be lacking, especially if you have multiple devices on the network, which is often the case today. To teach us all about Wi-Fi 7, which is brand new, I wanted to invite onto the show Netgear's Sandeep Harpalani. He's VP of Product Management for Connected Home Products at Netgear. Hi, Sandeep. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Great. Now, before we talk Wi-Fi 7, please tell us a bit about Netgear. Maybe a Netgear 101. What's the company all about?
So Netgear is a leader in providing Wi-Fi and networking solutions for the home market. We have been in this business for more than 25 years and really pride ourselves in terms of providing innovative networking products for people.
All right. So it is a home networking company, but there are obviously other companies out there that have routers and other kinds of solutions for the home. What would you say separates Netgear from the other companies out there?
So I think number one is this whole pedigree of being in this business for 25 plus years. We have a whole bunch of patents that cover various technologies. Our key focus has always been in terms of providing the best performance, easy setup and management for our customers. We try our best in terms of ensuring that you get the best coverage for your Wi-Fi through the farthest corner of your home, from your front yard to your backyard, as well as making sure whatever internet speed that you're subscribing to, whether it's 100 megabits or a gigabit, you're able to get the speed throughout your home. So that's really the key focus in terms of making sure that customer gets the best Wi-Fi performance across all their devices and internet connectivity across all the devices in the home.
All right. And we'll talk about mesh systems more in a couple of moments from now for those with maybe larger properties or want to extend that wireless internet to the outside, maybe to the backyard or a front porch. Let's now pivot and talk Wi-Fi 7. What is it and what are the key benefits?
So Wi-Fi 7 is the latest Wi-Fi technology that has been introduced. Now, as we see faster internet speeds, we're already seeing speeds up to 5 gigabits, going up to 10 gigabits and so on, internet speeds inside the home. As we see newer applications like video streaming, people working from home, 8K video streaming or AR, VR applications, or increasing number of internet connected devices in the home. All of these are newer challenges, and that's where Wi-Fi 7 comes in terms of providing you a much, much more faster connection. It's about 2.4x faster than Wi-Fi 6, which is the older Wi-Fi 6 technology. It's much, much more robust in terms of it handles much better interference that comes from your neighbors and so on. It also provides much, much lower latency. So latency is extremely important when you're doing a video call or when you're gaming and so on. Response time needs to be critical. You will immediately notice it if you are a gamer, if there's any kind of a delay in terms of latency. So that's where Wi-Fi 7 comes in terms of being faster, in terms of much, much more robust, in terms of providing your Wi-Fi connections and lower latency. So just to add to that, it's not only 2.4x faster, but one of the biggest benefits of Wi-Fi 7 is it utilizes the 6 gigahertz band. So typically you have the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band. It's now with Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7, we're adding the 6 gigahertz band, which is a completely new Wi-Fi band, which is available for newer devices. So it's just like if you have a completely new highway, which can be utilized for newer devices. So as you bring in Wi-Fi 7, you're not only getting a faster speed, but you're also getting a new Wi-Fi band where you have the least amount of interference and you're able to get the best speeds.
That's great. Thank you for that. Can Wi-Fi 7 also serve as a mesh system? Why don't we bring everybody up to speed about that as well?
Let's explain a little bit in terms of the difference between a Wi-Fi router and a mesh. So mesh is basically multiple units. When you take a Wi-Fi router, which is maybe connected to your cable modem or your internet provider modem, and then you have a second or a third unit, which we typically call as a satellite, which is spread throughout the home. So if you want to provide a coverage to a larger home or to every corner of the home, one of the ways to do this is to have a mesh system, which consists of a router and one or two more satellites that is spread throughout the home. So yes, Netgear's Wi-Fi 7 solutions can be set up as a mesh system. We actually have a separate line of mesh products, which are called the Orbi Wi-Fi mesh systems. There are some specific enhancements that we have done to talk about, again, the key focus in terms of providing the best performance. Orbi mesh systems have a separate Wi-Fi connection, which is connecting the router to the satellite. So, which is completely independent of all other Wi-Fi connections that we have. So what it does is that if you're getting a gigabit internet connection to the home, you want to make sure that you're able to get that gigabit internet connection throughout your home. The way we do that is using a separate Wi-Fi band, which is dedicated for connecting the router to the satellites. If you have a single device, which is maybe trying to download a big file, it's not choking up your entire system. It's like having a separate highway that connects to the router to the satellite and brings you the same gigabit internet speeds that you receive at one corner of the house to throughout the home.
That's a good analogy. Thanks for that. More about Wi-Fi 7 with Netgear, including what you need to get going, when we return on Tech It Out. Stay with us.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We are chatting with Sandeep Harpalani. He is the VP of Product Management for Connected Home Products at Netgear. We're talking about Wi-Fi 7, a new standard. How do you figure out, if you're a consumer, Sandeep, and you're not sure what kind of a router or mesh system to invest in, how do you figure that out?
So the first thing to consider is really size of your home. How big is the home? How old is the home? What kind of construction do you have? Because Wi-Fi is sensitive to if you have an older home which uses bricks and so on, it's much more difficult for Wi-Fi to go through it. So every situation is slightly different, but maybe to start off would be to look at the size of the home, who's living in the home. I have a home with a bunch of teenage kids who have their own lot of devices and so on, always connected, gaming, I work from home and so on. So I have a requirement in terms of making sure that I get a good internet connectivity throughout your home. Where do I work in terms of, do I work all across in terms of, do I have a TV at one corner of the house? What's the coverage that I need? So I think all of these things come into play in terms of choosing whether I need a Wi-Fi router or I need a mesh system. And if I have a mesh system, how many satellites do I need and everything? And even there, in terms of what is the internet speed that I'm getting, based on that, I might need to upgrade even that mesh system to make sure that I'm getting the similar internet speeds throughout the home. We do provide some help on our website for customers to go and ask some simple questions, answer some simple questions, and we will then help them in terms of recommending the best solution for their home.
And then again, with those satellites or hubs or pucks that you place around your home for a mesh system, it's modular, so you can always add more if need be. If you've got one dead zone, then you can add one of those plug-in devices nearby that makes a wireless handshake back to the router.
That is correct. So that's one of the biggest benefits of a mesh system, is that it's flexible.
You also inadvertently brought up a good point, is that the speed that you're paying for with your internet service provider is also important. If you're able to upgrade, budget permitting, you want to get faster speeds, because a router and a mesh system can only help so much if the internet speed coming into your home isn't fast enough. So that's something to also consider. Before we wrap up, Sandeep, how much do Netgear's Wi-Fi 7 solutions start at?
So we have introduced our first Wi-Fi 7 router, which is the Nighthawk RS700. That retails at $699. We'll also be introducing in the future our Orbi mesh systems with Wi-Fi 7.
So Orbi is your brand for a mesh system, ORBI, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and then Nighthawk is your high-speed router. Gamers are familiar with that brand. And then the best website is simply netgear.com?
Yes, netgear.com. And if you want to know more about Wi-Fi 7, you can go to netgear.com/Wi-Fi 7.
All right. Sandeep, thanks so much for carving out some time to talk.
Thank you for inviting me, Mark.
Because I like to focus so heavily on how tech can enhance and enrich our lives, perhaps it's no surprise I tend to write a lot about how seniors can leverage tech to remain more independent at home. The term is often referred to as aging in place or living in place, opposed to, having to go to a long-term care facility. I write for publications like AARP, and so I loved hearing from my dear friend and colleague Amber Mack, who put together a bunch of smart tech ideas for seniors, and she's joining us right now. Hi, Amber. Great to chat with you again.
Hey, Mark. It's great to chat with you too. And I think you're exactly right. The good news, I think, for anyone who wants to age in place is that technology really has become easier than ever. And there are lots of options for seniors that I would argue even 10, 15 years ago just weren't in place.
And so you wrote this awesome blog post on your website, ambermack.com, about aging in place and the tech that people may be able to use to help them and their loved ones. So where do you want to start, Amber?
Let's start with going hands-free with voice tech for seniors. So the idea being using your voice to interact with technology on a device like the Amazon Echo Show. So what's great about this for seniors is that it has a beautiful looking 8-inch HD screen. It also allows you to use your voice to do everything from listen to the news to play music, setting medication reminders, timers, and also has something called gestures, which I'm sure you've heard about, Mark, where you can raise your hand if you had a timer set and you want to actually turn the timer off. And I love this idea where we don't force seniors into looking at tiny little touch screens.
So powered by Alexa, of course, you can summon her, I use her in air quotes, to, like you said, set reminders, to call someone. We should mention, Amber, that for all of the items we're going to be chatting about today, we're not going to mention prices on the air, but if you go to your website to read your blog, it's all there. So ambermack.com. So now can you tell us about monitoring your health with a smartwatch?
My pick is the Withings Hybrid smartwatch. So it's actually called a scan watch. What it does is it's able to track your steps, your calories, your sleep, but it can also measure your heart rate, and it has a blood oxygen saturation reading capability as well. So super useful. This is from Best Buy.
We are chatting with Amber Mack, tech expert and entrepreneur extraordinaire. So let's talk about the other kind of wearable, which is one that you might wear on a lanyard around your neck, the Lifeline Medical Alert System.
Yeah. So if you have a senior in your life who is susceptible to falling, there are a range of different alert systems that you can get from Lifeline. One of the things that is cool is that they do have fall detection technology. If for one reason or another, a senior wasn't able to press a button, the device would actually detect that a fall had happened.
Another key differentiator between the Lifeline Medical Alert System and some fall detection in smartwatches is that you're actually speaking to a live person. So if you are wearing, for example, an Apple Watch and you fall, it will ask you, are you okay? And if you don't tap yes or say yes, then it will go and start automatically calling through your contacts, including 911 if you want, but you don't speak to somebody live. And then why don't we end off on something for simple cleaning? I guess robot vacuums can help, but there's other kinds of tech-infused vacuum solutions too.
Yeah. So the next pick I have is the LG Cord Zero all-in-one tower vacuum. So a couple of things I like about this, and I think cleaning your home, of course, can be very cumbersome if you don't have technology that is both lightweight, but also makes cleaning easy. So what this does is it's lightweight, weighing just over 5 pounds. And also it auto charges the battery when you put it back into the tower. And it also auto empties the dustbin every time you dock the vacuum.
All right. Again, that is the LG Cord Zero all-in-one tower, weighing in at just under 6 pounds. Great. Awesome. Amber, as always, it's a pleasure chatting with you. Very informative. I encourage our listeners to check out this blog post for even more information, as well as pricing and photos at ambermac.com. And I look forward to having you back on the program sooner than later, I hope. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark.
We're going to chat about Prezi presentation software when we return. It's mind-blowing. And this is something you would do from your mobile device or your laptop. Speaking of your laptop or desktop, don't forget Western Digital and SanDisk offer super reliable external and expandable storage. You do not need to pay a monthly subscription fee like you do the cloud. So check them out at westerndigital.com or sandisk.com. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Tech It Out on the Radio America Network. For those who create presentations for colleagues or clients, or maybe classmates, or maybe it's your livelihood, as keynote speeches are part of mine, in fact. Maybe you use Microsoft PowerPoint or Apple Pages, maybe Google Slides to create and deliver a presentation. But one that I've been using for several years, and something that I get a lot of questions and compliments about from the audience after my talks, is Prezi. It's a much more visually engaging and powerful tool for presenters, I'd argue. This is no death by PowerPoint, as the expression goes. Joining us to tell us all about Prezi is its CEO, Jim Szafranski. Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for your time.
Hello, Mark.
Hoping to have you on the show for quite a while, so this is a real treat. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Why don't we jump right in? At a high level, what is Prezi all about? And for our listeners, it's Prezi.
Yeah, like Saltzman with a Z.
Right, or Szafranski with an SZ, but let's not go there. But yeah.
So Prezi. Prezi is about connecting humans through their stories, right? And now we do this through presentation software that unlocks kind of the key to keeping people's attention, which we can talk about. But it allows our users to ultimately just have better meetings, better conferences, better websites or keynotes, like you mentioned, Mark, and better classroom experiences. So it's presentation software that connects humans through their stories and keeps everyone's attention.
I used Prezi as recent as Wednesday night. I gave a keynote speech at a conference called Retail Revolution. And once again, I'm asked, what was that? What was that software you were using? That was no PowerPoint. And I always laugh and say, yeah, it's Prezi. And I tell them to pull it up on their phone and to check it out for themselves. I would agree with you, Jim, that it's a much more visually dynamic tool than the competitors out there. I know this is radio. So is there a way that you can verbally explain what we're talking about with the kind of animation and 3D effects that Prezi offers?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. And I agree, it's much more visually dynamic. And if I could expand on that, what makes Prezi work so well, creating the audience engagement and understanding, is that it's designed to work the way our brain works. So here's where I'll give it a go over radio, which is, for instance, if you try right now to think about 5 things in your kitchen, probably yourself, anyone in the audience, you're not thinking about a bullet list. Right, you're visualizing your actual kitchen, right, in 3-dimensional, like, and as you move around that space in your brain, you're probably listing out like, there's my sink, and then to the left of my sink is my refrigerator, to the right of my sink is my stove, and so you start listing out, what's in your kitchen, but not in bullet form, right? As humans, we retain and recall information spatially, like this example, and that's how Prezi works. By presenting the relationship between your content, your ideas, next to each other spatially.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of putting it. When I give my chats, I often have like these key ideas, and then the camera, if you will, zooms from one to another, often zooming in. So not just laterally or, sideways, but zooming in and then pulling back out and then zooming into another part of my presentation. So it really does keep people's attention. Of course, it doesn't replace good content. So it's not to suggest that it's all eye candy and no substance. And I love the templates that you can choose from, or you can go at it on your own. And I'm self-taught, Jim. I'm by no means an expert when it comes to the software part of a presentation. I've been giving keynotes for over a decade, but I found that I was able to teach myself how to use Prezi. It's really sort of logical. You can add a photo or a video, you can add text and choose the path along the left-hand side. Really intuitive. Prezi is the company, it's the name of the software, but there are different kinds of Prezi software. Can you explain the differences?
Yeah, the original and core product is what we call Prezi Present. And this is for the traditional presentation moments, like the one you mentioned, like a keynote talk or in-person meetings, conferences, classrooms. Another of our products is called Prezi Design. And this is for anyone publishing content on the web in scrollable web pages. So it's used heavily by newspapers, consultancies, governments, students. And rounding out the suite is Prezi Video. Now, what Prezi Video does is it takes the core Prezi presentation and transforms it to work beautifully over video conferencing. And this has been a major growth area for Prezi as we anticipated the need for a built-for-purpose video presentations. Back in 2019 is when we launched it, and we were well-positioned to help our users and attract many new ones during the pandemic when everyone was working from home over video. Mm-hmm. And so what Prezi Video allows you to do is present more like a newscaster over video conferencing, so it works alongside things like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and you aren't hidden by your screen-shared content. And this has been, very successful for us. And last year, we were even named Zoom's Software Partner of the Year.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that Prezi can be used in person or online just as easily, however you're asked to deliver a talk, whether you're picture-in-picture with yourself on there, with your webcam capturing you, or you're standing on a stage and using a clicker to advance through I'll call them slides. But again, I don't want my listeners to think this is flat PowerPoint. We are chatting with Prezi's CEO, Jim Szafranski. We're learning all about the presentation tools like Prezi Present, and that's the spiritual successor to Prezi Classic.
Exactly.
And who, Jim, would you say is Prezi really designed for?
Yeah, our audience, our target for, of who we designed this for is anyone who wants to engage their audience meaningfully. So we tend to serve the needs of people out there trying to change something, trying to hit a goal, have a project they're trying to present and wrap up, which ultimately means we have users across the business, educational, and government sectors who have a presentation that they care a lot about and they want to do well with it. And what's been really interesting for us, when we talk about our users is, the word of mouth and the goodwill that these users create when they use Prezi. You mentioned this earlier, that people ask you, what was that? And that's brought Prezi now to over 140 million users, because exactly what you had said, audiences often ask, just how did you do that?
That's a huge milestone. More with Prezi when we return on Tech It Out.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
We are chatting about Prezi with the company CEO Jim Szafranski. Prezi is that awesome presentation software that you might not know what it was called, but if you have ever been blown away with amazing animation and video and this kind of 3D effect, it was likely Prezi. I use it in my presentations. I mentioned adding video, Jim, to the presentation, which I'm a fan of. I don't sit and watch it with the audience. Of course, I talk over it. But would you agree video is important when giving a presentation today? And if so, do you have any tips on how to best use them?
Yeah, good video presentations, in our opinion, my opinion, are important because there's a large segment of companies and the workforce that are trying to usher in a new model for greater flexibility through remote work. Previously, I had helped lead a movement of transforming the workplace when I was at my company called FiberLink, where we led the way to how mobile device adoption by employees happened, right? That kind of bring your own device concept. And, what we saw there is that employees changed the workplace, even though the workplace didn't want. They resisted this idea of mobile devices brought in from the outside. And I think we're in one of those moments now where employees want to change the workplace and can, for remote work. And I think that's why video presentations are so important because, effective remote meetings are a foundation to making this remote and hybrid work idea last and sustain. Yeah. And a tip that I would add is just remember the presentation in the meeting is primarily about you, though, right? Even when you're on video. And your content is there for you to create an understanding of your ideas by your audience. So the tip I'd say is keep it simple, show the big picture and the key supporting points, but don't overwhelm your audience with a lot of slides, a lot of content. And I think, Mark, as you mentioned, Prezi allows you kind of to zoom and do some things that really highlight the key things. And so that's why our Prezi video software kind of guides you in a direction of that big picture supporting points, when you're working over video.
Speaking of feeling overwhelmed and tips to giving a good presentation, why don't we end off with a non-techie question, Jim? Do you have any advice for those who are very nervous while presenting? I think that's still in the top, 3 of the most top fears among many, certainly business persons.
Yeah, I'll share a story. I remember early in my career being on stage in front of a couple hundred colleagues and just freezing up to the point that I actually apologized on stage to the audience for messing up my talk. And I remember afterwards, my boss and mentor kind of shared with me that I didn't need to apologize. And the point was because no one knew what I meant to say or was going to say.
Yeah.
Only I did. And so he suggested just, in those moments, collect myself, continue on, and that I'm on stage because I have something good to share. So I think that'd be my advice. Just remind yourself, people want to hear what you have to say. And when your nerves are getting you, slow it down. Pauses are really okay and typically only noticed by you. And then collect yourself and remind yourself that the audience wants to hear you. And normally that gets your confidence up and you do a good job.
That's great. I like that. Better than the, imagine the audience in their underwear. But I guess that can still work too.
Yeah. And practice doesn't hurt, but I didn't want to say that.
Yeah, practice is key. And, as a techie, I always try to remember that the audience probably doesn't know as much as I do. All right. So let's end off with where we can learn more about Prezi and how to get going.
The great thing about trying Prezi is it's available for free right off our website with no software to install. So if you visit Prezi.com, that is Prezi.com, you can get going.
All right. So Prezi.com. Our guest has been Jim Szafranski, CEO of the company. It's been great chatting with you, Jim. Please keep up the great work. I'm a huge fan of the brand, as you could probably tell. And it's been really great to chat with you today. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mark.
Before we wrap up another episode of Tech It Out, we do cover cybersecurity a lot on this program. I'm thrilled about my cover story with Reader's Digest. That was a first for me. So the June edition globally, including here in the US, as well as Canada, the UK, and elsewhere, it is about protecting yourself in the digital age. And one part of that solution is securely shopping online. And so on the Tech It Out radio show and podcast, I so appreciate my partnership with Visa. They've made some significant investments over the years years in fraud prevention, more than $10 billion, in fact, to support Visa's brand promise to protect the financial information of both individuals and businesses. There's a long laundry list of ways that Visa protects you and companies, so be sure to check it out at visa.com/security. That's visa.com/security to read up on Visa's anti-fraud efforts. It's super impressive. And a huge thank you once again to ASUS, the company that creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. ASUS is the title sponsor of Tech It Out. ASUS has a lineup of award-winning laptops and desktops, accessories like mice, keyboards, and monitors. They've got mobile tech like smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and much more, including the ROG, or Republic of Gamers, lineup of great gaming gear, including a handheld Windows 11 powered PC for gamers on the go with awesome controls, support for a huge library of games. It's called ROG Ally, ALLY. You can check it all out at asus.com/US/radio for more info. Thank you for tuning in to Tech It Out, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you next weekend when I share with you my trip to the Amazon rainforest with Intel, as well as Apple's WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference in Cupertino, California. Have a good one, everyone. Chat with you next weekend. Bye-bye for now.